How's it going, guys? Peshkat's here, and I'm joined by a guest today. You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Hi, my name's Samuel. I'm from Southern California along with Hashcats here. I'm a official visual judge for the English tournament, so I usually do that. And I've been playing Weiss for about 5 years now. Yeah.
Okay, and for those of you, the guys that are on the Discord, this is Chairman that I have with me. So
Yeah.
today we're going to be doing actually a double deck profile. We're going to be talking about a build that the two of us have been kind of collaborating to work on and find some optimal builds for, and that is the Million Live event with 3-7 or Million Live deck with 3-7 event top end. So the idea behind this deck is that this event is a finisher card by itself. So it's a 3-7 event, and its effect is you cannot play this if you do not have a red character, and then when you play it, you discard 3 cards and burn your opponent for 2 damage 3 times. So each of our decks are revolving around this card, and we're going to be showing you guys 2 builds today, my build and Sam's build, and we're going to be talking about the differences between our builds, some of the pros and cons of each, and some of the decisions that we made in our deck building. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with my deck. So, and then Sam, if you want to bring anything up during the as we talk about these cards, you can feel free to chime in.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so starting on mine, we're gonna start with the zeros, of course. So in my build, I run what is this? 17 zeros, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. And so we're gonna go ahead and start over here. These 6 cards, both Sam and I agree, make up a very strong early game core for attacking a lot and maintaining advantage. So the first card we have is the 0-0 Mirai. She is a clean cut effect. So for those of you who are not familiar with what clean cut is, she has the effect where if she reverses her battle opponent, you must choose one of your other music characters, rest it, and move it to the back row. And this can be used for saving your characters that have already attacked, moving them to back row, and preserving them for future turns. Her other effect is you cannot side attack, which isn't too much of a downside considering that you're going to want to be fronting with her. You're going to want to be reversing your opponent's characters and saving your cards, moving them to the back row. And the other half of this early game combination is this 0-0 Yukiho. So she has 2 abilities, both of which are very good for early game aggression. So the first one is when she attacks, you can choose one of your other characters and give it 2,000 power, or choose one of your other music characters, give it 2,000 power until the end of the turn. So this is useful for buffing your other attackers for killing your opponent's cards. Obviously, a really good candidate for this is the Mirai, since you can buff her to 5k and allow her to very easily reverse your opponent's cards in the early game. Yukiho's other effect is very much a Yukiho effect. At the start of the opponent's attack phase, you can pay 1 stock and move her to an empty slot on your backstage. So by combining the Mirai and the Yukiho, this allows you to move 2 characters to your backstage to preserve for the following turn. You can have Mirai use her clean cut effect to move one of your other characters, and then you have Yukiho use her effect and move herself to the back row. So like for an example, let's say you go, for your attacking turn, you go Mirai, Yukiho, and then a 3rd card. You can attack with this card. You attack with Yukiho second to buff the Mirai to 5k, and then Mirai reverses the opponent. You move this to the backstage, and then at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you can pay 1 stock, move the Yukiho to the back as well. So this allows for good early game aggression, allowing you to attack multiple times in the early game without losing out on cards. Sam, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I just think this Yukiho is probably arguably one of the best cards in the set, just because it gives 2,000 power on attack without caring about your field. Like compared to Shimakai effects, where it gives 500 for every other traded character. This always gives 2,000 power, so it's always giving the full value of that. Yeah, I just think this Yukiho is just so good. I actually have it at 3 in my build because I wasn't seeing it enough at 2.
Yeah. I think 2 or 3, either of those I think are good numbers. The reason that I chose to run few in not only this build, but also some of the other builds that I have been trying out, is because even though Yukiho is like a good as a turn 1 going first or going second play, because like you can play her turn 1 alone, she's your only attack, you move her to the back row, and then you preserve yourself 1 card for 1 stock. Having multiple Yukihos, like the more Yukihos you have, you kind of get diminishing returns because she can't really kill stuff on her own. Even if you have like 1 Yukiho buff another one, that's still only 2/5. And so I wanted to have other zeros that I could play that she could buff and they could reliably kill some of my opponent's cards.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next card on my list, I run 3 copies of this level 0 Iori. So she gives assist front 1000 to level 0 characters. And you can pay 1 as an act ability. You can pay 1 and sack her. And you basically do an Azusa effect. So you look at the top 4 cards, up to the top 4 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 music character among them, and add it to your hand. So the reason I run this card is mainly as an extra milling option. When we compare to Sam's build, which we'll look at later, he has other milling options, including his level 1 climax combo, whereas this deck does not mill quite as freely. And so having the Iori helps to supplement the milling a bit. Also, this card, obviously being a 1k assist to level 0s, helps me to keep some board in the early game. And also being blue, since my build of this deck is red-blue, while Sam's build is red-yellow, I want to have a bit of blue splash, which the Iori helps with. Anything you want to say about this card?
I think it's really cool that you can move Iori back to buff the Yukiho to 1/5. Maybe kill something. Probably not though.
Yeah. Something actually that it's kind of a cheese move, but I've done it before. Is you can have Iori in the back row. You attack over the opponent's character with a clean cut, and then you actually move the Iori to the other back row slot.
To the other back row slot? That's cute.
And then it allows you to buff your other 2 front row slots and be able to potentially kill more of their cards.
Yeah.
So for brainstorms, in my deck I run the Umi level 0, which is a tap self salvage brainstorm, and her other ability is your other level 0 character in the front row center slot gets plus 1000 power. So the main reason I run the Umi over the Mizuki is mainly because I really value the 1k power that she gives you in the early game. Even though I run the clean cut and the Yukiho in this deck, I really want to have secure power lines defensively on my opponent's turn. So not only am I trying to, it's kind of greedy in that sense, but the Umi is like just a good card anyway. So, but it's kind of greedy in the sense that like I want to be able to like have Mirai save a card, have Yukiho save herself, and then also have like a character not dying because I have the Umi brainstorm. So that's just kind of some of my reasoning on that. I'm sure the Mizuki would be like a perfectly good fit in this build as well. But for my build right now, I'm running the Umi brainstorm. Now for the last 4 cards of my 0 line, this is more or less like my preferred utility line for Million Live in general, at least for decks that aren't running Flower Stand. So it's 2 Hibiki, which is just a basic drop search, 1 Iku, which is a ditch climax salvage, and 1 Subaru, which on play you can discard a card, and then you basically do a Rico effect from Love Live Sunshine. So you reveal the top card of your deck, and you can salvage a character whose level is equal or lower than the revealed card on top of your deck. Another thing that you can do with this card is you can play her, and if you just want the top check, you can discard a 0, reveal the top card of your deck, salvage back the 0 that you just discarded, because it doesn't matter what you reveal on top. You're going to be able to salvage that back anyway, and it allows you to get a free top check if your hand is so optimized that you don't need the hand fixing. So that concludes for my 0 line. So that's 17 zeros. Next, we'll move on to my level 1 line. So for my level 1s, I run 8 level 1s. Or not 8. I actually run a lot more than 8. What am I talking? I think yours ran 8. I think that's why I thought that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
run 8.
So for mine, I run quite a few more than 8. So I run 11 ones. My preferred one combo, or it's not really preferred. I can talk about why I specifically chose this combo in a bit when we get to Sam's. So this is the Iku level 1 combo, and she combos with a gate. So she's a 105k, and climax combo on reverse, you get to salvage a music character, and you can also choose an event card from your opponent's waiting room and send it to memory. So against certain decks, so like ones that are running things like money counter or like events that don't get benefit out of being in memory, because that would be kind of stupid if you just help your opponent out by putting their events into memory. But against decks that have things like money counter or rest counters or things like that that can hinder your offensive pressure in the late game, you can definitely use this card to get rid of those, or like any card that just helps your opponent out. So like if you're against Bang Dream, you can get rid of their Cost Me events, their toilet events, or most importantly, you can get rid of their bread event if they run that, because this deck does not want to get stock swapped for sure. That would be very bad. But yeah, the combo itself, it's a very basic combo. Like it's very close to like Marika from Nisekoi, but it gets the job done. So for Ikus, I also run 3 copies of this Rio. So she has 2 effects. The first one is a continuous effect. The character across from her gains pay 2 encore, although like 80% of the time your opponent is going to forget that she does that and then just not encore their stuff.
And then the other 20%, they're just not going to pay 2 encore because it's probably not value for most decks to do that anyway. So
her other effect is basically Maya Kaini from Kantai. So once per turn when you use an act ability, she gains on reverse blind stock until the end of the turn. And so this works on either player's turn, just like Maya Kaini does in Kantai. So you can use your counters in order to give it to her, give her the ability on your opponent's turn. And on your turn, you have Umi and Iori, which are both act abilities which you can use to give her the effect on your turn. And then I run 3 1k counters. These aren't as useful at level 1, mostly because the base power of these cards is not super high, but it can be useful against certain matchups. If you recognize that your opponent's power level isn't super high, you can grab this to protect your Rio and then threaten getting another blind stock. But mostly this is used at level 2 for a very important level 2 piece, which we will get to in just a sec. The last level 1 that I run is 1 copy of Chihaya. She has the Shimakai effect, so on attack you choose one of your other music characters, and until the end of the turn it gains 500 power times the number of music characters on your stage. So she can give a 2k buff on attack. Pretty nice. Helps with your reverse abilities such as Rio or Iku. Can help you just get over stuff that you don't want your opponent to keep on the board, and it's just a nice one-of to have. And then, of course, as part of the Climax line, I am playing 4 copies of the Gate for Iku. So that's it for the level 1s. Now, let's move on to the level 2s. I run 6 level 2s in mine, and I believe Sam does as well. This is the most crucial card, in my opinion, and probably Sam's too, for the deck's success. And then I run 1 of each of these. So this Makoto is a very important level 2 piece. I think this is a very underrated card in Million Live in general, and it fits extremely well into this deck in particular because despite being a level 2 climax combo, you can comfortably run both a level 1 and level 2 combo in this type of build because your finisher is on an event and is not climax combo reliant. So the Makoto is a 2175, although she gains an extra 2000 power for each other copy of the Makoto that you have in your front row. And she has a climax combo with Birth of Color, which is a stock soul. When she reverses her battle opponent, you get to take a music character from your waiting room, put it into stock, and search your deck for a music character. So you're plussing with clean stock while also compressing your deck, getting searches, looking for pieces that you can use later on. And she's absolutely huge. The more copies you field of her, the better, obviously, because she's going to be gigantic. So, Sam, you want to have any comments on this card?
Yeah, I think a lot of people underrate Makoto because they think that if you don't have 3 copies of her, she's not good. But that's totally not true. If you have 2 copies, they're 9.5 each, which is pretty respectable. And since you're running in Randall's build, he runs 2 uh, level 1 Yukiho and 1 Chihaya. In my build, I run 3 Yukiho, but they can give on attack up to 2,000 power to one of the Makotos. So one of the Makotos can still be attacking for 11.5, which is usually big enough to at least threaten like your opponent's early play or something like that. So yeah, even if you just get 2 off, it's like very strong. And they're 9.5 on defense with counters up to 11. Yeah, so like you don't need to get 3 every single time to make her effective. I've definitely felt very good just fielding 2 and just being able to defend those 2.
Yeah, and you're able to just plus a lot just by not having them die, so that's also very nice. I believe you had a comment about them actually living during opponent's level 3 game that you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that you have to be careful about with Makoto is that since they live so easily, and since you're playing a climax at 2, it's really easy to push them to level 3, and if you're not careful, you can give your opponent like let's say you're like at 2.5, like 2.4 to 2.6, and you play a climax and you accidentally push them to 3, and they do their like finishing combo. They can actually side the Makotos for precise damage if they hit you to like a high enough level 3 threshold. So sometimes depending on where you're at and where your opponent's deck state at, it's actually wise to play over the Makotos just so you don't give your opponent the option to side it for -2 soul.
Yeah, or move her to back row.
Or move her, yeah. It depends on what your situation is.
Yeah. So that's the Makoto. Moving on in the 2s that I run 1 copy of this Tsumugi 2-1. So this deck doesn't have a free fresh counter, and I decided just as a 1 of tech, I would try out the next best thing, which is this Tsumugi. So her abilities on play, you can pay 2 free fresh. So it ends up being a pay 3 in total, but this deck tends to generate quite a lot of stock between the aggression that you're putting out in the early game, attacking a lot, as well as the stock soul Makoto combo, because it's able to generate a lot of stock. So in the case I ever need it, usually I'll try to like search this in the mid game using the Makoto combo, just in case I like triple cancel off the top and then I feel like I need to emergency free fresh and just get myself out of a bad deck state. This Tsumugi can get you there. Her other ability, which I don't really use a lot, but it's there. Once per turn, when you use an act ability, you can choose one of your characters, one of your music characters, and give it 2,500 power until end of turn. This, like I said, it doesn't really happen a lot, so I don't worry about it too much. It's mostly just there for the free fresh ability. And the last level 2 I run is 1 copy of the Mia counter. So she's a 2/5 counter, and when you use it, you can discard 2 to anti-change. Usually you would probably search this out off Makoto, especially if you recognize that your opponent is playing a deck where they're going to try to aggress onto your Makotos with early plays. Although you do have to be careful about your hand size, because in this deck you do need to discard. You do need to use a lot of cards from your hand when you play the 3/7 event for your finisher. So just be careful about that. So that's it for the level 2s. It's 6 level 2s, and then of course 4 copies of the Birth of Color Climax for the Makoto combo. Alright, now for the level 3s in my build. So I run 8 level 3s, 4 of which are events. So as I said earlier...
You run 4?
Yeah, I run 4 of the 3/7 event. I just want to see it. Any extra copies, like those can just get clocked, leveled, whatever. Like you want to see this. You absolutely want to see this. Because my build doesn't run a lot of alternative finisher, where if you compare to Sam's build in a bit, he does run more alternative finisher. I want to see this card 100% of my games, and that is why I run 4. Obviously, you're not going to be playing more than 1 in a single game. That's pretty unrealistic, but you do want to see the 1. For other level 3s I run 2 copies of this Yukiho. She is like my supplementary finisher, so she has an early play ability, but I don't really use it because I'm mostly dumping Makotos on my board at level 2. But she can be early played if you have 4 more music characters already on the board. And she has an on play, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a music character, burn your opponent for 1. So Like 9 stock, you can go 1 event, 1 Yukiho, or something like that, and it just adds an extra instance of damage to your finishing turn. And the last level 3 I run is this 3/2 Momoko. So she is an early play. If you have 2 or less climaxes in your waiting room, you can play her at level 2. And when she's placed on stage from hand, you can look at up to top X cards from your deck and choose one of them, add it to your hand, send the rest to the waiting room, where X is the number of music characters that you have. This card basically is just here in case I need to emergency dig for my 3/7 event for the late game. Outside of that, you don't really need to use her to put board pressure, because most of the time you're going to want to be going into the Makotos. And so yeah, so main game plan basically is the 3/7 event, however many Yukihos I can reasonably get alongside the 3/7 event, and then that's what we look for our finisher game. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up Sam's list real quick. Sam, if you want to add any input while I set your deck up.
Yeah, so I guess I can kind of like do a little transition between the blue splash and the yellow splash, between Randall's choice and my choice. So I think the blue splash is really good because it gives you access to the Momokos, which helps you dig for the events. With the yellow splash, you actually don't have any way to draw extra cards at level 3 with like an on-play effect or anything like that. So that's one advantage of the blue splash. And then I think that Smoogie, the 2/1, is also really good. The ability to free fresh, which essentially is like a heal. Plus it kind of helps reset your deck state. And a way to pay out a lot of stock is good. So I actually really do like the blue splash. I was considering doing tricolor for a bit, but the numbers are just too rough.
Okay, so I have your 0 set up, so I can go ahead and put the 0 on the board. And
yeah, so we can put the zeros up.
And you can go ahead and talk about these. So
yeah, so going to the yellow splash, so I think every yellow card in my deck is really important to how the deck functions, and so I think that the yellow splash is very worth it. So my 0 count is also 17 zeros, like Randall. The differences here, I run 1 more Hibiki, 1 more Yukiho, and I run 3 brainstorms. I run the Mizuki brainstorm, which is the search brainstorm instead of the salvage one, and I run 4 level 0 Azusa. So the level 0 Azusa, she has 3 effects. The first effect is when this card's damage is cancelled, you may send her to stock. The second effect is when this card gets reversed, if you have 2 or less cards in memory, you may send this to memory. So these are both optional. And then her last ability is shift level 0 for yellow, which to remind people what shift does, if at the start of your main phase, if this card is in clock, and you are and then you can choose a yellow card from your hand and place it in the position where this card was in clock, and then add this card back. So it basically swaps with the card in your hand. So the reason why this Azusa is really important is because I like to just get her on the field and then get her either into stock or to memory and help compress my deck a little bit more. It's useful for later on when my top end requires a little bit of compression because I want to hit triggers. And it also helps as a great way to generate stock. Because if she gets canceled, she goes to stock. And I guess I can talk about why I bumped up Yukiho to 3 in this build. I do believe that 2 is a sufficient number in most builds, but as I was playing my deck, I realized that a lot of the times I just really wanted to slam a Stoxel on turn 0 because I would have like 2 in hand or something like that. Oh yeah, my deck runs 8 Stoxel, by the way, so it's not 4 gate for Stoxel. So yeah, a lot of times I'll open like 2 copies of Aikotoba, or 1 copy of Birth of Color, 1 copy of Aikotoba, and I just want to like play the Stoxel, and it felt really bad unless I had exactly like Mirai, Azusa, and Yukiho, and if I could get the reverse off, and then if I could do that, like it was actually like really powerful because, so just imagine that field. So 1 Mirai, 1 Azusa, 1 Yukiho. I attack with Azusa first. If she cancels, she goes to stock, which is pretty likely because, or it's not pretty likely, but it's more likely since you have a stock soul backing it and she's probably swinging empty. And if it doesn't cancel it, you just stuck like at least 3 damage, which is great. But if she cancels, she goes to stock. If she doesn't cancel, you can, when you reverse a character with Mirai, you send the Azusa back row, so you can try again next turn. And then the Yukihiro will automatically run back row with her own ability. And since you play a stock soul, you're at between 3 to 4 stock going to your next turn after using Yukihiro's ability, which is pretty insane. And you still technically you haven't lost any cards on board besides the Mirai that probably gets reversed, which is like really, really strong. So being able to do that at level 0 and just like up the tempo of the game is kind of why I upped the Yukihiro numbers, so I could see that more or less consistently. 3 Hibiki because I like the consistency of the drop search, and I don't have that many stockouts, so Rano runs the Ioris, which helps pay out stock, but I don't run those, so I need other options to pay out stock. And then finally talking about the choice of Brainstorm, so I think I could run Umi in this deck as well, but since my level 1 combo salvages, I wanted the ability to search from my Brainstorm. And also it's kind of niche, but Mizuki's first ability, which is an act ability, pay 1, rest another one of your characters and stand this. It's actually kind of useful sometimes when I need to pay out a lot of stock, because this deck generates a lot of stock. And then if I need to pay out a climax, or if I'm against a matchup where they have like a 2-1 event and I just need to like, I don't know, pay out a lot of stock and Brainstorm a lot. I've used that ability actually. Not like it actually has come into use, and I think it's more useful in this deck than the plus 1000 power to level 0. But otherwise, the level 0 lineup's pretty similar to Randall's. I guess the main difference is the Azusa. But yeah, I think Azusa's really good.
Okay, so if we're all good here, we can move on to the ones.
Anything you have to add about?
I think you pretty much covered everything.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to your 1 line.
Yeah, my 1 line has exactly 0 cards in common with your 1 line, which is pretty exciting. So I run the Hibiki combo at level 1, which combos with the Sock Soul. I run 2 Tamaki and 2 Reika Brainstorms. So I run 5 Brainstorms in this deck, and I think it's really important to run both the Draw 2 Brainstorm and the Search Brainstorm, because the Draw 2 Brainstorm is the only real way you can draw additional cards in this deck, whether that's drawing to the event or drawing into another stock soul. It's really important, and that's also one of your few ditch outlets because you can draw 2 ditch 1. So yeah, I think it's really good, and it also gives 500 power frontal support, which is actually just so useful because the Hibikis, one of the main issues with Hibiki is that she gets no power from her combo. She combos with a stock soul, so she swings for 5,000, which is less than vanilla power, and most things like you like tie with everything at best, and you basically just die to like everything. So with the Reika Brainstorm, I find myself able to tie a lot more often, which is good.
Let's go over the Hibiki combo and how it differs from the Iku combo. So
yeah, so the Hibiki combo comes with stock soul, and it's on attack. If I have there's a condition, yeah. If I have another fake condition, if I have another music or animal character, I can mill 2.
Well, you have to mill 2.
And then salvage, I have to mill 2. And then I salvage from my waiting room a music or animal character equal to the combined levels of the cards I milled. So let's say I milled level 1 and level 2. Then I can salvage from my waiting room a character, music or animal character level 3 or lower. So this is really good because it's a mill combo at level 1. And it's very difficult for the combo to miss because since it's an additive, or it's the sum of the levels, if you mill a character, you can salvage that character for sure because the level gets added to what you can mill. So yeah, I think it's really good. I run enough level 3s and 2s to be pretty consistent about grabbing Makotos from the combo, which feels good. It's usually what I grab to set up for level 2. Yeah, and then I think the last card that is pretty unique. I feel like this card also is pretty severely underrated in Million Life is the level 1 Tamaki. So she has two effects. Her first effect is on come in play. You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order and then return them. And her second ability is on play. Your opponent chooses 0 or 1. And then you mill the top card of your deck. If that card's level is equal to the level that your opponent said, you draw X, where X is equal to that level plus 1. So if your opponent said 0 and you milled a 0, you draw 1 card. If your opponent said 1 and you milled a 1, you draw 2 cards. So this card is really important, and it kind of feels weird to talk about it now, but I'll bring it up again when the level 3 lineup comes, because this is like really important with the level 3s. But this card is just really good at being able to see your next 2 triggers, which helps a lot in late game when you're swinging for precise damage. Because after you 3-7 event them, they're probably not dead, and they're like between 3-5 and 3-7. So you really want to be like swinging for exact lethals and not overswing too much. So this card helps with that. And then sometimes you can get, lucky advantage. I don't really count on the second ability too much. It's like a mill, basically.
Yeah. Also worth noting that you can order the abilities in whichever way you want. That's very important.
Yeah. So usually I mill first because I want to know exactly what I'm triggering. And this is done at level 3. I usually mill first at level 3. At level 1, it depends. If I feel like I want the ability to hit, I'll look at the top 2 first, and then I'll mill. So like if I look at the top 2 cards and it's like level 0 and level 3, obviously I'm not going to leave the level 3 on top, because there's no way my opponent's going to be able to say 3. They can't say 3. So I'll put the 0 on top and hope that they say 0, I guess. Or if it's like something in a brainstorm, or sorry, no. If it's like a climax and another character, I can put the climax second, and if I mill correctly, I can draw into the climax, and if I don't, I can. So yeah, it gives me a lot of options. The order. Yeah,
and definitely helps with the level 3s, which we'll get to in just a sec. So is there anything else you wanted to add? I think we pretty much covered everything here.
Yeah, I think that's everything for the level 1.
Okay,
yeah.
And then of course 4 stock souls to go with the other 4 stock souls. So the two line, there's nothing new here. We have the
yeah, I run an extra counter, and that's
yeah. So these cards we pretty much already talked about. Is there any reason that you run 2 copies of this counter and 0 copies of the Emily counter?
The Emily counter is level 1, correct?
Yeah. Oh, so like so hurts your Hibiki numbers, I guess.
Yeah. So the Emily counter. So just an overview. It's a 1/1 vanilla 2/5 counter.
Wait, no. That's the Serika.
Oh no, sorry.
I'm just talking about the 2K counter.
Oh, the 2K counter doesn't have a soul trigger.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you run this over Serika because this is level 2 for your Hibiki numbers, and then you run it over Emily because Emily doesn't have a soul trigger for like Asusa, I guess.
Correct. Yeah, and then I guess just to expound on it, sometimes this card gets milled or docked, and I want to be able to see one in my hand if I need to. So having it at 2 is pretty nice. And I don't usually want to be countering anything at level 1 because I want to be reversing things with Makoto at level 2. So the 1/0 counter just never felt like it was ever something I would ever get.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the 3 line. So
which is very different.
Quite a bit different from mine. So we have the same first idea as my list, where we have the event and we have Yukiho as a supplementary finisher, but in Sam's build, he also runs 3 copies of Tsubasa as like a fallback option if he wants to play a bit safe for a turn, and also 2 copies of this Azusa. So why don't you go ahead and talk about these 2 cards?
Yeah, so I'll go over their effects first. So Tsubasa, on play, you can discard a card and heal the top card of your clock to stock. This is really nice with the 3/7 event because by generating more stock, I can field 2 soul beaters while basically paying 1 stock. So if I have 8 stock, I can play a Tsubasa and then also 3/7 event. Feels pretty good. And then the second effect is on attack. It's Shimakai, right? It's exactly Shimakai.
No. No, she can target herself and she counts herself.
Oh, she counts herself and targets. Okay, yeah. So on attack, choose one of your music characters, it gains power equal to the number of music characters you control. So up to 2,500 power. Yeah, and it's just pretty good to get over things at level 3. And also synergizes with the Azusa, so I'll talk about the Azusa now. So Azusa's first ability is on attack. It gets power 1,000 times the number of other music characters. So if you have a full field, she gains 4,000 power, which is a lot. If you attack, or actually, you almost always attack with Azusa, and I'll explain why. So the second ability is once per turn. During the turn that she's played, if she reverses a battling opponent, you can mill the top card of your deck. And if that card has a soul trigger on it, you can restand her. So that's really good. It's been printed in other sets before. Was the first one in Dalsegno actually?
Was there one in Dalsegno? I know there was.
There's one in Dalsegno.
I know there's one in Sword Art because that's the Dano Man, Suguha.
Yeah. That was an ordinal skill, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there was one in Dalsegno. It's red.
Okay.
I remember that was like I think that might be the first one.
Okay.
So
hey, turns out these have soul triggers. And this card.
Yeah. So there's a lot of soul triggers already in this deck, just because you run an actual level 2 lineup as opposed to other decks that usually skip level 2. But the most important card in the deck that helps with this is the Tamaki, because you get to look at 2 cards on the top of your deck and then be able to rearrange them. So if you look at the cards and you see a soul trigger, you can stack it on the second. Stack it second and attack with Azusa first. You guarantee mill the soul trigger, and you guarantee your restand, which is really, really, really powerful. Because it's free. You don't pay anything for the restand. So if you have 9 stock, you can restand and 3/7 burn, like event burn them, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then the Tamaki also synergizes with the Yukiho, because you get to look at the top 2 cards. So if you see a climax, and in this deck, every climax has a soul trigger. So what's really common, because by that time I have like between 6 to 10 stock. It's all compressed. It's all clean. I have like a crap ton of hand. So like my deck is usually just a mixture of climaxes and characters. So when I play the Tamaki, like more often than not, I see 1 climax and 1 character. So I put the character on top, the climax second. Climax is soul trigger. I mill that with Azusa so I can restand. And the character's on top so I can burn with Yukiho. So that gives me like a really good double threat top end. So the reason why I actually only run 3 events is because if I don't get the event, not like Randall's deck where if I don't get the event, I have no finisher. If I don't get the event and I have Tamaki, Azusa, and Yukiho, I get 1 burn for attack, which is
for
like
4 stock.
Plenty. For 4 stock. Yeah, so and at that time I have like 6 to 10 stock. So I usually just play a bunch of Yukihos, like burn them a bunch of times, and then do 4 attacks afterwards, which is just like really nice. Yeah, I think the combination of Tamaki, Yukiho, and Azusa is just really, really strong. And it allows me to like gulp my attacks in any order I want. And then it's not climax dependent. So if I don't want the extra soul, let's say they're like at 3-5, I'm not gonna play the stock soul because I don't want the extra soul. So I can, sculpt it any way I want. Works even better after I 3/7 event them. It's just like all these small instances of damage that I can pretty much like control perfectly, and it just ends up like being really precise hits to lethal, like all the time. Yeah, it's really nice.
All right, cool. I think that pretty much sums it up. Do you have anything else you want to add on the end?
Yeah, that's mostly it.
Okay, cool. So thanks for sticking with us through these deck profiles. If you guys want the full deck list, I'm going to be posting pictures of both of our full deck lists. They will be linked down in the description box below, so you guys can go check that out. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Peshcats here with Sam, aka Chairman. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.